What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Dash Rendar and today we are going over ancient warrior training methods. So I had a few people ask about what methods were used by ancient warriors. There's not a lot that specifies from a lot of the different cultures. There's not really good literature as far as what the Vikings did or what other cultures did, but there is some really good documentation on what the Greeks did and the Hellenistic culture and how they trained, and that even went on to train the gladiators, and that's going to be called tetrades. The word tetrades itself means quadrant, which means four. So there are 4 different days that are exercised on, and there are 4 different quadrants or tetrades for each particular day, each one focusing on a different particular highlight. So for their exercises, they had 4 distinct categories. That was a running category, which includes standard jogging, sprinting, jumping, running and jumping, and basically running back and forth at a sprint. They had plyometrics, which you know generally is going to be push-ups, pull-ups, body weight exercise. They had resistance training as well, and I'll get into that in the video. And then lastly, they really focused a lot on breathing. When it comes to actually planning the day, there were 4 distinct sections. The first one was propriaskavi, and that was basically planning the workout. So that way they had a general idea as to what they were going to do, but once they got out there, depending on the way the day was going, the environment they were in, they would plan that out. So that was a whole particular aspect of that training day. The next step was paraskavi, and that was the warm-up. So after everything's been planned up, set and ready to go, they begin the warm-ups. The warm-ups, they described it as just gentle type movements. Think of any sort of warm-up you do. A lot of it even said it was like dance type movements. So just a good way to get the body loose and moving, and that's good advice for any kind of workout you're doing, is warm up first, especially if you're almost 40. Next step was the main workout, Kyrios Paponesi. And so that's gonna be basically the brunt of what they do. So it varies depending on person to person, what you're training for, what that main workout is gonna be. They were very much functioned in their exercise. So if you were, let's say, a boxer, you do boxer. If you were part of the pankration, that would be the style of grappling they would use. If you were a runner, that would be your main workout. So that's the core of what you're doing. So the core workout was called Kyrios Gymnasi, and that was going to be where it would divide up into the specific training that they were working for that specific athlete, to try to maximize the potential of what they could do. So for the weightlifting portion, they had these really cool weights called halteres, and those were used in a full body motion. So they didn't have real good examples, especially like if you look at any of the pottery or anything, there was no examples of isolation type movements. So they didn't have specific examples of, let's say, like a curl or anything like that. It was more full body, and a lot of it was basically just taking them and throwing the weights behind them as far as they could go. A lot of the halteres were used for basically throwing. They'd basically throw it behind them as far as they could go, or they'd throw it in front of them as far as they could go, just to get the full body rotational movement. Then after all that was done, they would finish with breathing or cool down exercises, apotheria. And so like I was saying, that oftentimes deep breaths in and out, or forcibly exhaling out, or those quick short breaths. A lot of what people do nowadays to get warmed up, those breathing exercises are great cool downs. And then after that, they'd clean up, take a shower, and go about their day. So in the main workout, there were some common beginning elements, and a lot of times that was full body type motions, whether that was swimming, whether that was digging. They'd also play a game with the ball just to get loose. And then after that was done, they would go to the core element of that exercise. 4 exercises would be continued 4 days in a row. So it would be at different intensities and different structures for each one though. So for the first day, it's like a warm-up. You would do the same staggered exercises, but you do it 40-60%. The second day would be the main workout. So that's going 110% full bore. The third day is meditative, and the 4th day is technique. So that's going to be very important as well, where you're doing the same type of exercises for your sport, but you're maximizing and focusing on different things. So one day is a warm-up, the next day is hard work, and then there's meditative, and the last day is technique. So you're working to make sure you're refining what you're doing to the best possible way. However, one thing that they did say was important was abstinence. And so as attractive as my wife is to me, that's not going to be something that's on the table. So sorry, that was kind of dirty, but I'm going to keep it in. I've done jiu-jitsu for quite some time. I'm okay at it. Some of these are silver medals, so they're still medals nonetheless. But one of the cool things about when I started my investigation in ancient cultures many years ago was to see the similarities between pankration and like a jiu-jitsu or an MMA. It doesn't get a lot of recognition that I think it deserves, because it really is a full type defense system, like a sambo or something that has striking in it as well as takedowns, almost like a catch wrestling mixed with a boxing. It's a full mixed martial arts. Read about that or looked into it, check it out, because it needs a lot more recognition than the major ones that are out there, jiu-jitsu and judo and all the other type of martial arts. That one I think is very much top tier. But just for an example, let's say that's your training regimen, that's what you were going for. Well, in order to do that, they would start up very similar how you'd start your MMA or jiu-jitsu class. They would do their warm-ups, and then you would do some clench drills, right? With a wrestling, you're gonna start doing some clenches in there side to side, move the body, maybe work on some techniques, maybe some takedowns, work on some manipulation or some joint locks. And then you can go into the actual rolling and getting going with it. A really cool martial art that I respect a lot. So check it out, by the way. It's a tangent, I know, but it is very cool. One exercise that was really universal for those who practice pankration or boxing was just holding the arms out. So sometimes it was done with weight, sometimes with not. Hold their arms out for as long as possible to strengthen up those shoulders, because that's going to be what's key in there as well. It also references that the boxers did a lot of shadow boxing. They had their own type of heavy bag, which had grains or sand or things like that. It wasn't just the Greeks who used this though. The Romans and the gladiator school saw a lot of value in the training that was being done. One of the most famous gladiators of all time, not Spartacus, but Spiculus, he trained with this method. He trained with the Tetrades mission. So he was the best of the time. Just think of the best MMA fighter at the time. That was him. He was top tier, and this was his training method. So it gives good credence to the mindset behind it and the way in which they trained. Other examples of how ancients trained to get stronger would be looking at the gladiators. They would fight with wicker shields that were about twice as heavy as the ones used in battle, and they'd have a sword that was about twice as heavy as well. And one of the most common things is they would just have basically a log in the ground, and they would take that sword, that practice sword, and just hit it just upwards of 1,000 times. Just getting those movements down, moving the body, just like that. So it's just repetition with a slightly heavier sword than would be used in the actual battle. The thing they understood was progressive overload. Just look at Milo. So if you're not familiar with the story of Milo, he was a Greek Olympian who won 6 times, was the strongest around. Apparently he died trying to pull up a tree that was too heavy, but he started off with a bull. He would carry it when he was younger, get the bull on his back and carry it around town. As he grew, the bull grew, and he continued to carry it around. And in so doing so, he got to the point where the bull was full grown and he still carried it around with him. Now it's more of myth than anything, but the idea is sound. So if you're watching this for some motivation to lose some weight or exercise, just remember the word that Socrates said. It is truly a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength his body is capable of.